Welcome, everybody, to the newest episode of the Amateur Theory Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about the hottest movie out right now, and that is Tenet. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to start off with a completely spoiler-free review. So if you haven't seen the movie, don't go away yet. Stick around. But we are going to get into spoilers later, and we will give plenty of notice. You will know when we start getting into that. But yeah, Tenet. I just saw it yesterday. I think you saw it.
I saw it about a week ago when it. Actually, I guess before it came out in the States because it got a earlier release worldwide. Yeah.
Yeah. So, because baseline, did you like it? Not or meh?
I liked it. No, this is a pretty solid film. I think. I liked it
too.
Yeah, like most of Nolan's stuff, I think he's a pretty great director, and this didn't really disappoint. The biggest complaint I have, and I think a lot of people feel the same way, is that I just didn't understand what the hell was going on in this movie.
Yeah. There was a lot of cool scenes, a lot of cool action. It felt very epic. But as far as like the details of what was going on moment to moment, there was literally a quote in the movie where someone said,
I know exactly what you're going to say at the very beginning. Yeah.
Yeah, they were like, don't try to understand it.
Just feel it. Yeah.
Right. And it's like, that is the perfect expression for how you need to watch this movie.
No, the character says that line, and I immediately thought, like, oh, is this the movie trying to tell me something here?
Maybe. It's definitely got some convoluted something going on. But I think when you look past all of the the pseudoscience and the intricacies of the relationships, whatever, you just get down to a almost James Bond-like kind of movie. You got your secret agent, and he's awesome, and he does secret agent stuff.
Yeah, it's a spy espionage thriller. And I think Christopher Nolan is very good at directing, I guess, like tension, action, thrills. And I'd say that's the very core of this movie. It's a thriller. I mean, a lot of the plot points are convoluted, and if you told me you understood all of this movie, I don't know if I'd believe you. But at the end of the day, it is exciting. Even if you don't completely understand what's going on, I imagine you'll still be on the edge of your seat, or at least wrapped up in the spectacle.
And one thing I would like to say is this movie is definitely made for the theater. So if you can see it, I understand there's, it may not be possible for everybody right now. My experience when I went, I was literally the only person in the theater. So I wasn't too worried about. I still wore a mask just to be safe. But as far as I'm understanding, I think most theaters are like this. They're not taking a lot of people. They're not all these crowded rows. And this movie is totally, like, I think you'd lose a lot if I had watched this, streaming on my personal TV. Maybe
I totally understand why. Yeah, I totally understand why Nolan pushed hard for a theatrical release, because it is very much suited for the big, like, cinematic experience.
Something that really stood out to me for this movie was the score, because I usually think he usually gets Hans Zimmer to do his movies, but for whatever reason he couldn't do it this time, so we got a different guy.
Yeah, Hans Zimmer was working on Dune, I think.
But yeah, this guy is I forget his name. It's like something German. But apparently he works a lot with he works heavily with Childish Gambino. If you're familiar with his music, and a lot of other artists that I really like. And so I kind of felt, or I heard some of the similarities in terms of their music, and then the which is still a score. This is, don't expect hip hop music. There is hip hop music at the very end, but it's a traditional score, but it feels a little bit more less. It doesn't sound like Hans Zimmer. It's its own thing, and I really appreciated it. That was something that stood out to me, and I really liked, in the theater you get the booming sounds. So if you are going to watch this at home, whenever this comes out, if you got the surround sound, I think that'll add to it for sure.
Yeah, no, I remember liking the score. In terms of sound, a problem I had with the movie is, and I noticed this, I think, more towards the end of the film, it got to the point where the sound design was starting to like clash with the dialogue. Like I couldn't hear some of the dialogue because it was literally getting drowned out by the score or sound effects. And I like the bombs as much as the next guy, but I also like hearing dialogue.
That's
especially
fair.
When people are explaining what's going on in this movie.
What did you think of the cinematography? So this is shot on, 35, 70 millimeter camera. It's
I think it was a combination. I'm not sure, but I do know Nolan likes working with actual film a lot.
Yeah, I wouldn't say this is quite as impressive as like Dunkirk was, but it was still pretty good. Like I was lots of treats for the eyes, for sure.
Oh yeah, this is a visual spectacle, and the special effects
they're top notch.
Yeah.
The special effects are amazing. It's some of the coolest action scenes I think I've ever seen, just because of the gimmick of the movie, and it was just all done really well.
Yeah, they're so seamlessly woven in. It's like if you're into that kind of thing, like you'll be sitting there wondering, like, whoa, how did they manage to pull that off? It's very impressive.
And then I guess the last thing I'll talk about is the acting, which just performances across the board, great.
Very solid. Yeah.
Yeah, they got the I want to say the lead actor's name is Washington. I'm never very good with
John David Washington. He was in Black Klansman.
Yeah, he was great as the spy. Like he seriously, like, strong James Bond vibes from me, which I really like. I love James Bond, so that was awesome. And then Robert Pattinson was great. I'm blanking on the leading lady and the leading villain's names.
So the leading lady, I don't think I'd heard of her before. Her name is Elizabeth Debicki. I don't know if I'm saying her name right.
I feel like I recognized her, although I can't think of anything that she's in.
When I first saw her, I thought she was Emily Blunt for a second, but she's not. She just kind of looks like her. The main villain's Kenneth Branagh. He's quite a good actor. He can definitely put in a solid performance.
Yeah, and I definitely liked the kind of interesting relationship dynamics between all four of those characters. They're all interesting. They're all different. Like the relationship with each other is different and it adds a lot to the drama. So there's a lot of character drama in addition to this cool action going on, which really drives the movie.
Yeah, no, the character drama really helps because while the overarching plot is fairly convoluted, you can still understand the character dynamics and interactions.
Yeah. So overall, I would say that if you're a fan of Christopher Nolan's movies, I think this gives you a lot of what you like about him, right? Like, it's a lot of spectacle, a lot of cool action scenes, tense kind of, people have been comparing this to Inception, and I think that's somewhat apt.
Yeah.
It's somewhat. A little heady, a little, but still like an action thriller. I would say that Inception was actually easier to understand, though, as convoluted as that movie was. That was more easy to understand than this.
This is Nolan's most convoluted film yet, I think.
Yeah, even more than Memento or any of those kind of like, brain teaser type movies. But still, I'd give it a good review.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely recommend it. It's another solid Nolan film. I think by this point you probably know whether you like him or not. And if you like Nolan, you'll like this movie.
I think that's fair. Well, all right. That is it for the completely spoiler-free review section. Now we're going to start talking about scenes and other things that are in the movie. So if you haven't seen the movie yet and you want to pause it, that's okay. Just come back after you've seen it. We can give you lots of juicy analysis. But what did you think of the main gimmick, the back through time thing, because that's where a lot of confusion came from, for sure. But it added, it made the action scenes super interesting. First
oh
of
yes,
all.
In terms of visual, it's a great gimmick. It it looks, yeah, it's. I thought it looked amazing. Like, there's that one like car chase scene, like towards the middle of the film, and like some cars are going forward, but then like others are going back, and it looks seamless. Like, it's so like, I don't know how they achieved this effect, but it looks flawless.
I also loved how it did that thing where, with a lot of time travel movies, I feel like this is a common theme where there's a mysterious person at the beginning, and it turns out the mysterious person is the character. So the character fights with himself, which is, I think, probably the coolest fight in the entire movie, actually. I really, really liked the forward fighting him and the backwards fighting him, which looked cool the first time they showed it. And then when they showed it from the perspective of him as the backwards person, it was even cooler because you could see how it made sense. I don't know. It's hard to explain with words, but it was totally awesome. But
I'm scared this is just going to turn into us now trying to piece together what happens for the next 20 minutes.
Yeah, honestly, the ending, I actually have no clue what was going on with that. There was like some kind of, I knew the world was going to end, right?
Yeah, they were trying to stop
the bad guy.
The end of reality.
They didn't beat the bad guy. Everything would go wrong. But for some reason, so the woman, right, kills the main villain, which was bad. I don't know why. Well, it was bad because if he died, then the world ended, but that didn't happen. And they explained it had something to do with their actions, but I didn't know why. I really didn't understand that whole thing.
No, yeah, because the whole time they're like, well, no, you can't just kill him because that'll screw everything up. But then she just kills him, but they talk about it somehow. It's like, well, it's okay, actually.
Yeah. Like I didn't understand how that added to the drama. Well, I mean, it was dramatic in terms of the relationship with her and him. That was dramatic. But in terms of how it related to what was going on in this final firefight, I had zero idea of what that was supposed to be. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Apparently, Christopher Nolan had been working on this idea for what I read was 20 years, and the script for 7 years. So maybe, that's how long it takes to like connect all the dots and like put it together. How much do you think? I was actually wondering this as I was watching. How much do you think? It was kind of, they're doing the pseudoscience thing where they just hope the audience doesn't think about it too hard because it doesn't actually make sense, or if this was actually like an extremely well thought out. If you took the time to analyze it frame by frame, you'd be like, oh, this all makes sense. Because I wasn't sure.
I could actually see the latter being the case here. Because I feel like with Nolan, he wouldn't just like crap something out and be like, oh, hope that works. Like, I imagine it's actually very, like, pretty meticulously thought out. Definitely on his part, the screenplay. Now, whether he was able to translate that into coherent story is another thing. But I imagine and I wonder if anyone's already made a YouTube video like this. There's probably someone that could like go in and analyze it and go like, oh, well, see, because this thing did this thing. It's one of those, how crazy people, or in movies, crazy people, they have like
the board.
Pictures. Yeah, the board. And everything's connected somehow.
Yeah, I wonder if this is one of those like, deep analysis kind of movies where you could like, things you didn't notice on your first watch through, kind of movie. I feel like it could be.
Yeah, it could totally be the case. Because, I mean, Nolan's done that thing before, right? Like, with Inception. I think that's just what he's into. Like,
yeah.
he's good at his action and his thrills, but he also likes convoluted, weird sci-fi stuff.
What did you think of the ending where we find out that the entire movie's the plot was the secret plan of the future main character?
By that point, I don't know if it made much of an impact. It was just kind of those. Oh,
I feel like I saw it coming by the end. Yeah, I would never have guessed that in the beginning of the movie. Like I had no idea what was going on. But by that point, when we got there, I kind of assumed that he might have done something along those lines. Yeah. I was not expecting Robert Pattinson to kill himself, though, or sacrifice himself to save the day. That kind of threw me for a loop.
Yeah, and it's the way it's handled is, I don't want to say odd, but it's like, because you don't see him like, it's not like a heroic, like, oh, I'm sacrificing myself and saving the day. It's just like, oh, he's gonna die.
Yeah.
Oh well.
I liked that. I thought that
that's
the sacrifice yourself heroically, die slowly. That can be done well. Think like Boromir from Lord of the Rings. It's cool, but it's cliche. Like it's done many times. This was such an interesting twist on it.
That well.
Yeah. It was really cool that they do all these callbacks. The fighting with himself, the girl jumping over the cruise ship,
the edge of the boat,
and then in the beginning of the fight when you see Robert, I need to learn characters' names before I come on the show. But anyway, Robert.
I don't remember their names either. So
to be fair, they don't mention them a lot because it's a lot of secret agent stuff. So they don't really say their name. But Robert Pattinson, when the first time they get in that fight with you see Robert Pattinson is fighting somebody and then he just stops and then turns around. And later he's like, I took care of him. And at that, as an audience member, you're kind of like, oh, this guy's going to double cross him. He's a secret agent or something. And then it turns out that sort of he is a person from the future come to help our main character, but he was a good guy all along. Which was it's those are the best kind of twists, when they set you up to think the twist and you don't. I really liked that, because when there's no teasing at all, there might be a twist and it's just really sudden. That can be cool, but it's it feels it feels less smart. I don't know. It feels like the movie didn't really get you over you. It was just a surprise.
Yeah,
whereas
and I'd say that's a Nolan trademark. He does this in a lot of his films, where he kind of lays the cards out one by one as the movie goes on. And every now and then you see a card and it's like, it relates to this. And then at the end he lays out the last card and you're just like, aha.
Yeah. Do you think do you think your feelings on this movie would have been very different if you had watched it on TV, at home?
I think the theater experience really helped, because this is a spectacle. I think there are just some shots and moments I'm like, oh man, that's crazy, dude. The scene where they're trying to in the art gallery, they plan to crash a plane into it, and you see the plane moving into it and crashing, and it looks awesome. It's amazing. It's bombastic.
Or the scene near the end where there's a building that's collapsing and then it reverses and fixes itself just so they could blow it up again. I mean, those kind of things are just I don't know, they are really cool. I really started, I enjoyed the whole movie the whole way through, but I really started enjoying it when they started adding in the soldiers. So they had the reverse soldiers, and it was this future past pincer movement thing that was just I don't know, it was so cool to think about. And this is this kind of movie where you kind of partly because you're trying to figure out what happened, but also just it's a fun thing to think of, that's you're creating a world where it's different rules for time travel that I think is original. I've never heard of this before, where it's not time travel. You don't go inside a little box and then come out in a different year.
Yeah, right? Things are literally like moving backwards. Like,
yeah, and so that's I don't know. It's just kind of like I think in that world you could do a lot with it. I don't think Christopher Nolan is big on doing sequels, but this seems like something that a fun sequel could come out of this if you had took the time to make that script, which I'm sure it would take a long time, but.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know where you'd go from here, but yeah, just the entire.
I don't even think you need to continue this story just using that mechanic. Just the going backwards through time and forwards through time. You can come up with a completely different story, but using that same kind of thing, I think you could come up with it interesting. But it probably won't happen.
Yeah.
So I guess let's talk about how this is, because I read talk that Hollywood is putting all its hope into Tenet and see if movies were still viable in the COVID age, and the end result seems to be It didn't completely bomb.
Has it made back its budget?
It hasn't, not yet.
Okay.
But I think out of its $200 million budget, I think it made like 150 so far, and it hasn't been out very long. And especially because of COVID, it might be more of a trickle than you would normally. Normally you'd get a whole lot of people in that first week, but given that one, there's almost like nothing out to compete with, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is the movie you're going to see, and then two, I know for myself, I was kind of like a little intrepid about going into the theater, and it wasn't until I heard the theaters are mostly empty that I was like, oh, okay, if I'm going to have the theater mostly I don't mind sharing it with 3 or 4 people throughout the theater. And if that's the experience that a lot of people have, then maybe instead of that first week, you get a slow trickle that just stays consistent. And if it does that, then it could do okay.
Yeah, I'm wondering how long they're going to keep the film in theaters for. Like, will it be an extended period of time because of just the corona situation?
The other alternative is that they give up really quick and then try to get to streaming as soon as possible.
I get the feeling Nolan would fight against that. And with a name as big as him, he probably actually has some influence. Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, I could see that. Although I would wonder if they did do that, if they went to streaming, that it wouldn't just go to Netflix. It would be, like
VOD,
$30, yeah, and you can see it now. But again, you'd be missing out. You'd be missing out if you saw it at home.
Yeah, it's kind of a shame because I wish everyone could see this right now, just to not have to worry about the other stuff, because it is a movie for the theaters.
Yeah, and I do want to be clear that even though it is my experience that the theaters are mostly empty, I don't know what it's like in your local movie theater, so go with your discretion, right? I'm not advocating either way to go see. I'm saying the movie is good, but if you do not feel good to go into the theater, that is totally valid.
No, yeah, I know some people that are saying I'm not, they're not going to see Tenet, and I understand. I don't blame them.
Yeah. I'm happy I did see it. I did not bring anybody. I don't usually go to the theater alone, but in this case, I was like, well, I don't feel good about asking anybody to come with me. I'm willing to. Oh, sorry. Yeah, but I'm glad that it went really well. It was a really cool experience. This is the first time I've ever been to a theater where I was the only person there, which I kind of liked the experience. If I'm honest, it was kind of nice.
Dude, that is the introvert film lover's dream right there. I think that's what everyone wants. They like the theater, but we don't want other people there. We just want it all to ourselves.
Yeah, and this was one that didn't skip out on the seats either, so it had the nice recliner seats. It was a nice experience. Yeah, how do you think this compares to other Nolan movies that you've seen? So I'm guessing that it's not your favorite Nolan movie.
I wouldn't call it my favorite Nolan movie. And But this is the thing with all of his movies. There's none that like elicit super strong feelings where I'm like, that's definitely his best, and this one's definitely like one of his weaker ones. Like, I think they're all actually pretty solid and equal in terms of quality.
I definitely have a favorite, but it's not necessarily because I think it's so much better of a movie. It hits the right boxes for me, kind of thing. The Prestige, if anyone's curious, okay. But that would be my favorite.
Solid answer. Yeah, The Prestige is great. But so is Inception, and so is Batman, and so
and so is Memento. Like, they're all great, for sure. And this adds to a list of strong movies by him. I at this point, anything he makes, I'm gonna check out. Like, he's just one of those directors.
Yeah, he's one of the biggest names in film right now. So, and probably will be remembered as such.
Is there anything else you think that was of note? So we talked about the special effects, the score. So good special effects, good score, good acting, good character drama, confusing plot. Was that the only negative?
Yeah, the convoluted plot's probably the biggest, I guess, negative. But at the same time, while it's fun to poke fun at like how confusing it all is, you still mostly understand why things are happening, or it goes from point A to point B to point C, and you can understand how we kind of got there. Like, you're not completely clueless. Like, when something happens, you understand, like, oh, well, okay, I get why this is a big deal in the context of the movie, kind of. So it's confusing, but at the same time, you're not like completely lost to the point where you're just checked out of the film.
The motivations of the characters are always clear, even if you don't understand the specifics of the plan that they execute or whatever. They talk about it before, like, we're going to do this and this and this and this, and you're just like, I don't know what you're talking about. But like, you understand their motivation. Their motivation is to, steal a painting. It's to destroy the base. It's to kill the bad guy. There's always like this overarching, how they get there might take all these twists and turns that are all crazy. But like, the general idea, I agree with you, is clear. So I didn't feel like, there's some movies that are confusing where I don't want to watch them anymore because I'm just like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know the significance of the scene. Like, I'm not into it. But that didn't happen here. And I don't want to be too nice to the movie, but for me, it was kind of fun to try to figure it out, or like try to think of like they're explaining all this stuff, and it totally went over my head, a lot of it, but just trying to be like, okay, if they did this and they had to go backwards in time, maybe they would need to do this machine, and some things click. I think some of the more obvious things, like how why he would fight himself, becomes more clear, right, as you're seeing the fight. Because that could be confusing about, like, why would you fight yourself? But if you think that, the forward guy is the aggressor, actually, right? Which is not how it appears at first, but he's the aggressor, and the other person is just defending himself. But because he's fighting reverse, it's not completely clear that that's all he's doing. But then as you watch it, it's like, it becomes clear. So I was saying that fight was so cool. So yeah, they're just little things that, like, you do pick up stuff. You're not completely baffled, but anything about the science, anything about whatever they're talking about. And I mean, obviously it's not real science, right? It couldn't be, or else we would have something like this in real life. And they do explain away a lot of stuff. Robert Pattinson in particular likes to say, like, what is exactly, like, it is what it is, or that's the way it goes, something along those lines. Yeah, he says that a lot.
Okay.
Because the main character will, like, start asking questions like, why this, and he's just like, that's just how it goes. That's reality. And I was like, yeah, man, I relate with that. Let's not think about this too hard. So yeah.
Yeah, that line at the beginning of the film, when I think John David Washington's character, like, asks her, it's like, wait, well, what about this? And she's like, just don't think about it, feel it. And I immediately thought, oh, okay, yeah, it's gonna be that.
the beginning, it's almost like force powers, which was I think that kind of went away by the end, or like the powers, the going backwards ended up manifesting in a way different than I expected it at that point. At that point, I thought people were going to be like reaching for things, and they were going to be coming in their hands, but really, it's a little bit more. It's cooler than that, actually. I'm glad they didn't go in that direction. Yeah. But it definitely was interesting.
Yeah, and I guess other than the convoluted plot, the other biggest negative I had was probably the sound mixing.
Right.
And I think I've heard this complaint from others too. And I was wondering if it was just a thing like with my experience, but other people have seemed to have also said there's points where it's just hard to hear what characters are saying.
Well, they do this weird thing. They layer voices on each other, and they have a forward speaker and a backward speaker at the same time. And yeah, with like the crazy like explosions and the soundtrack. And then you have two voices. One of them is speaking backwards and sounds like gibberish. Yeah, there was certainly certain times when I was kind of like straining, like, okay, what exactly is going on? Especially the scene where they're divided by the glass.
Yeah,
that guy shoots the girl. There's so much crazy dialogue stuff going on in there, and then it's not even like, I don't think it has a continuity, or is that the word? It's not linear, right? Because they're doing time travel stuff. So like people are saying things, but it's for a previous conversation, and there's just so much going on right then that I definitely had to think about afterwards, like what exactly was said in that conversation. And I don't even know if I even know to this day. I might have missed some things for sure. But I get what you're saying.
Oh, it got to the point where I just started giving up. I was like, yep, I missed that. Well.
But yeah, overall, go watch it. Go watch the movie. Oh, I guess if you're still here, you probably have seen it. We hope. This is not some of those movies we've seen which are bad. We say just watch the podcast. You don't need to watch the movie. Watch the movie. We're not doing a very good job of explaining this movie. So even if you were trying to have a replacement, we're not doing justice for sure.
No, definitely not. This has, it's almost one of those, you got to see it to believe it type things.
But all right, I guess we can end it there. Tune in next week. We're going to be talking about Mulan and maybe some of the controversy around that as well. So watch out for that. And then I guess that's it. Until next time.
Yeah. Until next time, everybody.